Hello, everyone, and welcome to She Emerge Sisterhood podcast. This is podcast number 4, episode 4. And so I want to welcome you into this space. Today, I will be sharing on navigating self care. So, as I dive in, I want to bring to your attention this idea of wellness. So, wellness as a way of life oriented toward optimum health and well being in body, mind, and spirit. All of these components are integrated by the individual to live life more fully within the human and natural community. And I love this quote by Myers, Sweeney, and Witzmer, right? And so, taking it a little further, I wanted to punctuate this in terms of what Marianne Radmacher, she shared this. Live with intention. I love it. Walk to the edge. Listen hard, right? Practice wellness. Not only that, she echoed, play with abandon, laugh, choose with no regret. Child, no regret, absolutely none. Appreciate your friends. Continue to learn. Do what you love. Live as if this is all there is. Another one of her quote, may your walls know joy. We're speaking of joy, joy, and more joy. So may your walls know joy. May every room hold laughter. When was the last time that you laughed? I mean, a good belly laugh, right? And every window open to great possibility. Absolutely love this quote. So, as you joined with me this evening, perhaps morning for some, wherever you are listening from, I want you to be able to lean into the space of how are you navigating self care? And again, this is by no means any medical advice. Absolutely not. This podcast is for educational purposes, right? And so as this resonate with you, I'm hoping that even as you're navigating self-care, you will be able to glean something from what I am sharing today. And even so, share it with a friend, right? That sister friend that perhaps you know would be able to benefit from this. So go ahead, like, share, and again, subscribe if you have not yet subscribed to our She Emerge community. We just love having you here, right? And so as I consider that, I want to be able to remind us of this idea that checking in with ourselves, you know, this idea of mental or emotional health. And so, as I consider myself to be a mental health advocate and a therapist as well, this is so important for me to share that our mental health and emotional health is just as important to maintain as our physical health, right? So Good mental health involves feeling good about yourself. That's where you get to practice self love, self compassion. Remind yourselves as you reflect that you are worthy. You are worthy of that love, that self love, right? The self compassion as you lean into that space on a daily basis. Being able to respond well to stress. I cannot overemphasize that. Even as you navigate life, life is life in, right? And so there's so many different things that you may be navigating right now. And perhaps you're able to even, lean into the space in your own therapeutic space with your therapist, right? And so that's a good thing. I cannot overemphasize therapy is amazing. If you're able to access therapy, that's great. And I'm cognizant of the stigma surrounding therapy, right? But even so, that's a space where you're able to participate, a space where you're not judged, you're listened to, right? There's confidentiality because even as therapists, we are, held with such standard, so that's going to be important. So again, being able to cope, right? When you feel stressed or worried, guess what happens? There are physical reactions that's taking place, including perhaps a fast heartbeat, tense muscles, a tight stomach. Perhaps you may feel sick, fast breathing, difficulty sleeping. And so being cognizant of that as well as you navigate self care. So there are many ways to build a positive mental health, including doing the things that you enjoy, right? Absolutely. Doing the things that you love to do. So think about this idea of wellness wheel and what does that look like? Perhaps work, life, balance, spirituality, community, family, all of these different systems. They tend to, you know, have various roles that you're playing in these different capacities. So knowing when you have the bandwidth to be able to say yes to the different demands. And perhaps you may feel as if you're pulled in different directions. Even this idea of the spirituality, right? Even within your own faith community, perhaps you are in leadership role and self-care is something that you're navigating as well. So it's important to look at these different, and know very often we tend to compartmentalize, self-care, where self-care is not a priority. Self-care is definitely more than a mani and a pedi, right? I want to also bring that to our attention. Absolutely. It's more than a mani or a pedi, right? Self-care perhaps is something that you are able to look at, but you're still not able to carve out that time. You actually know the things that you're supposed to do, but haven't taken the time, right? So, again, the self care is essentially taking that time to do things that help you live out your best life, right? It's improving both your physical and mental health. As I mentioned before, when it comes to your mental health, self care can help you to manage the stressors, lower your risk as well of illnesses, right? And increase your energy. Have you ever been low on energy? Absolutely. That's when you know it's time to check in with yourself. So, if we look at self care in terms of psychological or emotional, it's safe to say that taking time off from work, perhaps, or school, even participating in hobbies that you enjoy, learning new things. What are some of the skills that you would love to accomplish? Perhaps you have even journaled about it, but it's on that back burner. Haven't been able to carve out that time to be able to acquire this new skill. Perhaps it's taking a cooking class, right? Arts and crafts, perhaps even, whatever that may look like for you. These are all a part of taking care of you. You are important. How about expressing feelings? Yeah, that's a part of self care. Because again, you know, that difficult conversation that we don't have, definitely the dysfunction continues, right? And so instead of us pushing away those feelings, those emotions, let's normalize it. It's a part of who you are. And so the more we stuff those emotions down, guess what happens? The more those emotions emerge. Absolutely. What are those bodily experiences as we think about it? Let's consider, you know, the nervous system and how that shows up in our spaces, whether it's the sympathetic nervous system or we just, in a mode of surviving, right? As opposed to being at rest and the parasympathetic, right? Where we're able to experience that calm, that peace, and especially that joy. These are all interconnected. Our mental health is just as important as our physical health. Absolutely. Right? How are we able to recognize even our strengths? hmm That's going to be important, an important aspect of navigating self care. When was the last time you watched a movie, a good movie, right? Absolutely. A movie could be a comedy movie, right? Something humorous. That's a part of that self care that I mentioned earlier. And so, even as we look at the psychological aspect of self care, I want to also share on the social aspect of self care. So, this perhaps will resonate with you in terms of How are you spending time with the people that you love, you feel safe with, you feel that you're able to be you in that circle? Hmm. That's important, you know, spending time, quality time, family, right? Carving out that quality time with your family, that's perhaps on your list of things to do. Hmm. Meeting new people, even, right? Staying connected in your tribe, your community, your faith community, your sister friend community, your support groups, even, right? And so I want to look at the spiritual aspect of self care, spending time in prayer. Many of you perhaps have done your 21 days of fasting and prayer, and that was a time that you were able to, um, carve out because that resonates with you as part of your spiritual journey. So, again, meditation, that's an important component of self care, even if you consider reflection, you know, professional self care. What does that space look like for you? Work, life, balance, you know, do you have a comfy workspace? Are you taking breaks? Are you creating boundaries? I know for the most part that even throughout the pandemic, that has been a challenge for a lot of people, right? Perhaps you worked from home and still do. Are you still able to take breaks, carve out time for you, right? Perhaps you may consider that as well. And how about, utilizing all the opportunities that you may have to relax? And of course, sometimes you may think about, staycations. Some people may say mecations, me time. If you think about a flight attendant, right? Their first idea is to take care of themselves, and then they're able to help others. It's this notion that you cannot pour from an empty jar, right? And so as you fill up, you know, as you fill up, then you will be able to pour into others, you know, from a healthy space. That's going to be important. So think about as you review your very own social support systems, what does that look like? You know, support in the sense of when you need to lean on someone, how are they showing up for you? How are you even with receiving as opposed to giving? That sometimes could be difficult for some people, right? So, journaling in this space, a lot of times I come across, clients who will share about their journaling experience and how they find it useful. They're able to, jot down different concerns, even that they may have. This is a way for them to journal their emotional or physical distress. And, even even so, journaling is useful for others. I've said it's useful, and even so I've seen where it's useful for just jotting your thoughts, clarifying issues, problem solving, even determining patterns. right? If you are able to identify those patterns and how they show up, and as you explore and process, this may be helpful for you as well. And this is where you also get to monitor your progress, right? So, as I mentioned earlier, getting adequate sleep, adequate rest, that's going to be useful. And as you look at your own daily routine, how are you able to, carve out that time? So, what happens when you come across this notion of self sabotage? The messages that you tell yourself, I am not good enough, I'm not worthy, or even the self talks, that's something to look at, right? The negative core messages that we tell ourselves, we go to that automatic thought, right? And just a reminder that you are not your thoughts, okay? And so those patterns that very often show up in our different spaces and how we contextualize that, to make sense for you. So, again, how are you personalizing your self care so that you can experience optimal health? That's going to be crucial. So, if you have tuned in from your various geographical areas, perhaps you're in the Caribbean, perhaps not, but wherever you are, and you have now become a part of She Emerged Sisterhood community, and we very much appreciate you showing up, sharing this podcast with your family or friends, even. And so that's going to be something that we encourage you to continue doing. Like, share, subscribe to our podcast as we continue to share in our weekly podcast. That's important for us to be reminded as well that we are here to serve, we are here to share. As I mentioned earlier, this is not a therapeutic session. And if that's a service that you would like to, access, we encourage you to access that service, right? We encourage you to continue your own journey in processing and healing as you're reminded, perhaps very often, that your healing is not linear, right? It's a journey, definitely a journey. And perhaps self care is something that you're working on in your own therapeutic space. I encourage you continue doing that. That's important, right? And so as I close at this time, don't forget to leave us a comment, right? And share, right? So that's it for today, guys. Until the next podcast, here's a reminder: you're not alone. Be well, take care of you, practice self care, make it a priority. Bye, guys.